this beautiful Sunday, for this beautiful show we have prepared, you will actually be taken on a journey of a video I'm preparing right now. As you see behind the scenes, and that video is all about the all-decisive question that should all of us as Tesla shareholders and SpaceX shareholders and AI fans and analysts should occupy us by a lot, because it comes down to the central question that both Tesla and SpaceX are stocks that are very highly and richly valued, that have a lot of expectations built in. And my theory for both of them is that from now on, this will not be about more hype. It will not be about more stories. The stories are all well known. We know the stories by now that SpaceX will change the world and the universe forever, and that, of course, Tesla will do the same. The question whether these stock prices can keep up where they are at right now, especially for SpaceX, or can be driven back up once SpaceX drops, or for Tesla, if that share price can actually go through the roof and achieve a repricing, will not be functions of more stories. It will be functions of cash flow, or more specifically, operating income. Only if these two companies can unlock true new cash flow can they maintain and expand their stock price. And for both of them, there are major cash flow and profit opportunities at the horizon, and maybe closer than at the horizon. And we want to take a look today at what that actually means and how these two actually compare. And all of you guys have probably heard about Colossus. Colossus is a giant compute cluster by SpaceX, and that compute cluster has just proven that it can generate enormous amounts of cash. So before the IPO of SpaceX, that just happened a few weeks ago, they announced that they are leasing out their giant Colossus 1, the first big data center, to Anthropic for $1.25 billion a month, which adds up to a lot of money. Roughly, by the way, according to my computation, I will share that in a second, so to 15 billion revenue, but also roughly $10 billion EBIT, earnings before interest and taxes. And that was a surprise, because that is nearly doubling the entire EBIT of SpaceX. It announced shortly thereafter that it used Colossus 2, the second large compute gigafactory, partially to Google for $920 million per month. Of course, that is only a small part of Colossus 2, because Colossus 2 is larger than Colossus 1, and they are leasing out a small part of it because they need it for themselves for training of their Grok model, their Frontier LLM. And that adds up, obviously, to a lot of money. Here we have much higher depreciation, so my EBIT for that is only 2.4 billion, but that brings the total EBIT added to 12.5 billion, or more actually, 13.3 billion. That is a lot of money. And when we compare that to Tesla, that is actually much more money in terms of EBIT than all of Tesla brings in. And now looking into the future for 2027, this dramatic race boils down to the big question whether Tesla can unlock Robotaxi revenue, the one thing that makes Tesla actually very potentially attractive. Here is Robotaxi in case you forgot how it looks like. This is Cybercab. This magic vehicle is Tesla's counter to the SpaceX potential. And Robotaxi has also tremendous cash flow potential. And today I want to just show you a little bit what I'm thinking about how to compare these two things. Because people talk a lot about Starship, they talk about orbital AI, but all of that stuff is far out in the future, at least compared to Colossus 2 and Colossus 3. The next big compute build out. And there's some debate in the community with analysts, with banks, and also with YouTubers. Isn't it obvious that SpaceX can outperform Tesla in the short term because Colossus 3, that is certainly currently in the build? Isn't it clear that Colossus 3, if Colossus 2 already brings in 11 billion in revenue and probably roughly, 8 billion in margin, 2.5 billion in EBIT because of the high depreciation, because it's only a small share of it. But isn't it clear that SpaceX in the short term could lease out more of that and could launch Colossus 3 with Elon's track record of building these things in only 120 days or less, 122 days, in 3-4 months? Isn't that obvious that SpaceX can actually outperform Tesla Robotaxi? And I want to just invite you quickly to a short table here where I'm working on this question and answering this question. I'm not done yet. I will just show you how I think around it. First of all, we start with a very simple model on Robotaxi, so we get a feel for what's going on. Here's the EBIT of Robotaxi, and you see that this thing can be, of course, insanely profitable, especially given that Tesla's, what is Tesla EBIT 2025? I was confused with 2024. Let's be sure, 4.35 billion here. Okay. Tesla EBIT 2025, 3.45 or 3,450 in millions of dollars. And you can hear multiple over Tesla EBIT 2025. And then you can very quickly do the math. It is this divided by this. That is the multiple that is being added. So let's do it like this, and then you guys can see what actually happens. So, I need also, of course, $8 here. So let's do this, and you see why Robotaxi is an absolute killer for Tesla stock. Let's do it like this. Multiple. This is the added multiple over Tesla EBIT. Let's make this wrapped. And there you have it. So here is roughly what we are talking about. Okay, so if Robotaxi cybercaps fleet in 1,000, in 1,000. So here you see the case for Tesla and why this is such an interesting, exciting thing. If Tesla deploys 100,000 cybercaps, which I think could happen quicker than most people think, by H1 next year, it would add $5 billion in EBIT, which is the equivalent of adding 1.4 times the entire EBIT of Tesla by H1, let's say in 1 year, right? By June 2027, 100,000. It's a little optimistic, but it's possible if we see the inflection point, if we see the point where Tesla can deploy these things at scale in 2026. Because at that point, you can easily, not just easily, you will definitely reach 100,000 cybercaps manufactured and produced by June in the next 12 months. There is no doubt about that from a manufacturing point of view, that is easy. The question is, can we flip the switch and get these cybercaps out in time? I think we can. But let's see. Even if you're only at 10,000 in December, we can definitely get to 100,000 in June. So this is realistic. Let's go further and say 1 million. That's 10 times more. That would actually 14.5-fold the EBIT of Tesla to 50 billion added, right? So we would be at roughly 55 billion in total, which would bring down the price earnings ratio of Tesla currently to 25. at a growth rate that would be absolutely staggering, probably over 100%. Over 100%, depending when that exactly happens. But if that happens in 2029, yes, you would look at a massive growth rate of Robotaxi. So this is in a nutshell. We will have a much more sophisticated model. The team is working on that. We will bring you a nice white paper and also video on the exact Robotaxi resolution to make this clear what's happening. But look at this number, 50 billion, 5 billion. So Tesla can land between 5 billion and 50 billion added in 2027, 2028, in my opinion, somewhere in between with Robotaxi. That is what we are looking at. Now, how does this compare to SpaceX? When it comes to SpaceX, when it comes to Colossus, the interesting topic about Colossus is we have Colossus 1 fully deployed. Colossus 1 was built back in the days. You have it here. I showed in the table. This is a little messy still. But Colossus 1, original Memphis site, former Electrolux factory. So Colossus 1 is the first built in Memphis, has roughly currently 230,000 total GPUs, 150,000 H100s, 50,000 H200s, and 30,000 GB200s. Now you have to understand GB200, that's Blackwell. They are significantly more productive than H100 and H200. So gigawatt tokens per gigawatt are much better with Blackwell, which is the decisive thing you can actually charge for these things. Now, important here is they use roughly 0.3 gigawatts. Okay. And they use roughly 35 gas turbines and 200 Tesla megapacks. So Colossus 2 expansion and first gigawatt scale site in Tulane, South Haven, Tulane Road in South Haven, that uses significantly more energy. It has 1 gigawatt, a little bit over 1 gigawatt. And I mean, that's the target at least. And has 110 GB200s, which is a lot. Okay, so it's scaling right now. And the site was acquired in March 7th, 2025. And it uses Solaris gas turbines with hundreds of megawatt and gigawatt scale capacity. So that thing is in the build, being built out, and has more capacity. And Google has now leased out $920 million of this. Now the thinking is very interesting and easy. Some people who are smart say, look, SpaceX can actually make a lot of money in 2027 because they're just bringing online Colossus 3 and they keep scaling Colossus 2 before. And since they make already $15 billion, here, let's zoom out a little bit. They make already $15 billion with Colossus 1. How hard can it be to make 30 billion with Colossus 2 and hundreds of billions or 100 billion with Colossus 3 if they use Vera Rubins and Blackwells, right? And important, all of that has nothing to do with space, in case you didn't notice, right? It has nothing to do with getting Starship reusable. It has nothing to do with establishing the AI satellites in space. The thesis here is SpaceX has massive opportunity to make a lot of money through terrestrial build out of Colossus 2 and adding Colossus 3 as a bridge into space in terms of business. And that sounds very smart. I'm still doing a little bit of research, but here's what I found. I give you guys the takeaway. The case is very simple. Look at Tesla Robotaxi. They need to deploy 100,000 Robotaxis to make 5 billion in EBIT. Okay, 100,000. Some people say that's optimistic even for end of 2027. I say it's possible by mid of 2027. If that is true, that could get to 200,000 in my opinion by end of 2027, meaning they would have a run rate of 10 billion added EBIT, right? And I don't know how great you are in math, but if you copy this over here and turn this into 200, you will see that is 3 times added the entire EBIT of 2025. In other words, that would be at 4x EBIT, which would be dramatic for the stock because it also sets you up for this trajectory. But people say, Joe, this is not easy. It's not easy to deploy 200,000 robotaxis by end of next year. And 100,000 is also not easy. It seems like a giant lift for Tesla, but it seems like an easy game for SpaceX to do the same. What do I mean with the same? 10 billion added EBIT sounds like a total walk in the park for SpaceX because SpaceX just added, look over here, it just added, okay, 15 billion in revenue by leasing out Colossus 1 at 80% margin, 7 billion total capex, 1 billion depreciation per year, you're ending up at 10.8 billion EBIT. So basically, SpaceX in a single swoop just with Anthropic added as much EBIT to the company as Tesla would add with 200,000 RoboCabs. Now that is quite something because it seems like that was such a side gig for SpaceX, but it's a game-changing, history-changing effort for Tesla. Tesla has to deploy literally 200,000 commercial robotaxis just to get one Colossus 1 leased out. And so people say, Joe, I love Tesla, but isn't SpaceX just vastly superior even before space? Because they can just build Colossus 3, lease out Colossus 2. Colossus 2 can make at least twice the amount of money of Colossus 1. That's 20 billion EBITDA. And Colossus 3 can make at least 5 times the amount. That is 50 billion EBITDA. And for Tesla to get to that point, we can do the math. Let's copy paste one more, right? Just on the back of the napkin, right? Here, look at this. C1, C2, C3. I make this very simple. I make it simple math for you guys, not the detailed math. That's too confusing right now. And let's say C1 makes them 10 billion. 10 billion in EBIT, right? Here, let's put in the factor, roughly. Or let's say gigawatt and compute factor GPU, which leads you to total factor. Total factor. And we can say self-use to subtract that. So gigawatt, right? They have 0.3 gigawatts. These people have, let's say 1.2, and these people would have another 1, okay? It's very tough to get these gigawatts up right now. I will get to this in a second. That is the big problem. Compute factor is 1. This compute factor, I have to do a quick research check here. You see, you're seeing in real time what I'm doing here. How many more tokens per gigawatt does GB have over H200, and how much more Vera Rubin over GB? Let's say, ask Grok of all people what these exact multiples actually are. And then we can enter this here and we have the compute factor. The total factor then will be, of course, gigawatt times compute factor. Then we have the self-use factor is 0. And then we have the total, the revenue factor, right? The revenue factor equals the total factor times 1 minus this here, okay, times, and then we can just use that EBIT number here, boom, and then we get to, oh, no, we need, of course, that was a mistake. Boom, boom, boom. I made a mistake. Not T6. Then we know the answer here, and you will see what I mean. 3x Vera Rubin, 3x. So 3x for Blackwell, that's the compute factor. These are all Blackwells. And then Vera Rubin over C1 has a huge factor, 8 times over this. So 25 times, that's a lot. Let's say 20, that's a little too crazy. And so here you have the total factor, right? And the revenue factor is this divided by this, then you get to it. It should be 1, exactly. And then we can put this down here, only that we have to change this now. See, you can see how all the mistakes I'm making. You can see this now. See, and this is the crazy part, and then we can put the cell views in. The cell views here is maybe, I don't even know what it is, 60%. So that goes down, and maybe this is also 60%, or let's say for 50%. They need a little bit more, 60%, okay? So here's the crazy thing, that when you run that math, that you see that in theory, Colossus 3, that isn't built yet, would get them 27 times the revenue of, even at full capacity, Colossus 1. So here, revenue potential, revenue or EBIT potential, right? And then you get to the final number, and that is basically the main argument of these people who say Tesla is screwed because SpaceX is just so much more powerful in terms of short-term mega operating income that it can get. And I will clean this up. There will be a different video that is cleaned up here where I make this point. But here you basically have it, right? That is exactly what people are saying. It's very rough math, but you see that in theory, Colossus 3 can make $288 billion in EBITDA in absolutely no time whenever this thing is completed. And therefore, Tesla has absolutely no chance, because in order for Robotaxi to make this, we can do the math in a second here. Basically, you would need how many Robotaxis? Let's say here you would have 52 billion, that's exactly 1 million, right? And then here you would have 10 million Robotaxis, and here you would have 20 million Robotaxis. So basically, what these people are saying, if you build out Colossus 3 with Vera Rubins, I think my compute factor is a little too high because I'm assuming 25x for Vera Rubins, but half of them will be at least not Vera Rubins. So maybe the factor is only 12. Let's see what happens then. 173 billion. Okay, let's say 15 million Robotaxis. Still too many. So 12 million Robotaxi, probably 12,500,000 Robotaxis, 181, then you get it. So basically they're saying Colossus 3, which some people say is now currently in the build. They got the licensing, the permitting approved in April this year, so 2 months ago. According to the theory, well, they are so fast and they could get the GPUs, they could have the first pieces of this up and running this year, and then full scale end of next year, and then lease half of it out and make $170 billion. And for Tesla to make 180 billion, how much is this? 170 billion. For Tesla to make the same amount in earnings as Colossus 3, they would need 12 million cybercaps on the road, which is like impossible anytime soon, obviously. So SpaceX end of next year would have a run rate of 180 billion, without Starship, without relanding, without orbital AI because of this. And I heard that and was like, is that true? That sounds completely nuts. That is a very important question, because if that's true, then SpaceX is dramatically undervalued. Then the forcing function of getting SpaceX stock through the freaking roof is already here, is not Starship dependent. Oh my God, what do we do now? But then I did a little research. And there is a reason. That's the funny thing. There is a reason why this math doesn't math. It maths in theory, okay? It maths in theory. I kind of did a stupid thing. I should basically take this here. It maths in theory because I believe the demand would be definitely there. The demand would be there, but can you actually build these things? And I have not totally concluded the research. You guys can also do research and help me in the comments, help me on X, help me in pioneerlands.org, go to pioneerlands.org. Sorry for all the delays, by the way, in pioneerlands.org. We have some insane thing coming. I'm very excited. It's going to change the world like nothing else ever before. Elon can go home once we launch Pioneerlands. Relaunch it. No, we need Elon. He shouldn't go home. We need the money. We need the stocks to go up to finance this entire operation. But Pioneerlands is going to be amazing. All of you guys will be empowered pioneers very soon. You can create your own capital apps and tools. You can create your own networking tools. But much more important, we will also launch the Pioneer Academy. And there you can learn things you have no idea about. It's not about money. It's about something much bigger, and I'm very excited. It's about the Matrix. I'm talking about the Matrix and some other things, and will reveal some things that I've thought about for a very long time. Okay, this is not the topic of this video, but the Matrix, it's getting very tight for the Matrix. I think we can end it now, and I have a plan. That is coming on Pioneerlands, and of course it's going to be good for our money too. That's a given, but it's going to be very exciting. In any case, let's get back to this. Here's the thing. I'm just telling you that because you can go there to pioneerlands.org, ask also questions, and we'll cover them. But here's the thing. The build out of Colossus 3, even the continued build out of Colossus 2, which in theory has $52 billion EBIT potential, even at 60% self-use rate, that thing has a major problem. And maybe you've heard about this in the news, not specifically around SpaceX, but generally in the news. There is major resistance. There's now major resistance, including lawsuits against SpaceX, as against many other data center buildouts. And you probably see that data centers are canceled left and right. Because a gigawatt is over 1 million homes that, you know, whose energy get consumed here, or whose energy equivalent gets consumed here. And so there is massive, crazy political resistance forming. And we have to understand that these things are absolutely massive, massive. They are absolutely massive, and that means they're not easy to build. And it's all about the energy and water use and cooling use, which is all in the end energy use, the grid connectivity. And this has become a much bigger problem than people realize. And that means the odds that Colossus 2 will be stopped in its tracks and Colossus 3 will be absolutely attacked left and right by politicians, by lawmakers, by citizens, by activist groups, by lawyers is huge. Okay? And the interesting thing is that is, of course, one of the main arguments why SpaceX is so high in demand, because people realize this entire build out has hit a complete wall. It has hit a complete wall of reality because the demand is not the problem. The supply is the problem. And in the supply, the GPUs are not the problem. The RAM isn't the problem. The problem is we can't get these things stood up. That is the problem. To give you a feel for what's going on here, Texas, the entire state of Great Texas, has only 160 gigawatts to operate the entire space. The entire state is 160 gigawatts. And we are talking about just here a gigawatt, there a gigawatt. And that is not Mississippi. That's not a city like, where is Colossus 3? Explain the gigawatt use of the town Colossus 2 is in. Okay, just to give you a feel for this, the entire state of Texas has only 160 gigawatts. And we are talking about 1, 2, 3 gigawatts added here. That is pretty crazy. So Memphis, Tennessee, right, or South Haven, Mississippi. So Colossus 2 is in Mississippi. Colossus 1 is in Memphis, Tennessee. And to give you a feel for this, the entire Memphis metro peak demand is 3 gigawatts. Like, let that sink in. And, we are basically talking 2 gigawatts for Colossus 1 and 2. Okay, so it's basically a third to 2/3 of an entire metro area that needs to be added to the grid, which normally takes decades to get this done. And it has all kinds of implications, right? The bottom line is, the long story short, I can show you here. I can show you this. Look at this. Entire Memphis area here is 3.5 gigawatts. Colossus 2 is 1 plus gigawatt. Colossus 1 and 2 combined is 2 gigawatts. 60% of Memphis metropolitan city peak. Okay, so that is the problem, and there are so many problems with the grid. And that means it's not that easy. It is not that easy that we can just build these things. And that is, of course, the reason why SpaceX is so hot, because SpaceX is promising to take this problem into space, where we have a lot of space, we have unlimited energy and all these things. So in a funny way, the big case, strategic case for SpaceX's space endeavors is the reason why this short-term argument that SpaceX can so easily outperform Tesla in terms of EBIT is not as easy as it sounds. And so these comparisons that, Tesla has to launch 1 million robotaxis, to even get close to Colossus 2 EBIT potential that is already unlocked now in 2027 is not that simple. And the people who argue that SpaceX can make 170 billion, 160 billion, 150 billion in revenue next year, I think underestimate the obstacles in the way. These obstacles are not GPU. These obstacles are not NVIDIA. They are not Micron, Samsung, or SK, RAM. They are not Elon and the team's ability to build and stand up these data centers fast. No. It's all about the energy. Everyone has a problem. All the data centers. Look at how many data centers are getting canceled. Not because of demand, but because they're failing to get these permits. So, it is a little early to declare Robotaxi dead. It's a little early to declare Robotaxi not important because it's too complicated, too much effort compared to SpaceX. And that is my current state of analysis. I hope I get this video refined out next week to give you a tight overview of what's actually going on, including a separate Robotaxi video where we go through the EBITDA or EBIT and can compare this. So don't get too excited about SpaceX. I think there is still problems there. Unlocking hundreds of billions in EBIT is a little harder than it seems. And it's not going to happen, in my opinion, through these data centers on Earth. So let's see what everyone is saying here. Let's start at the bottom of the comments because I'm curious what you guys say. Next Big Future says in June. Hi, Next Big Future, by the way. In June 2026, the DOJ under Trump administration intervened in federal court in Mississippi, critical to US national security, economic security, and energy security. Good points, but what's the outcome? Do we know that yet? Do we know what's happening? I saw your discussion, by the way, with Peggy. Very interesting. That triggered some of this. I was also independently working on a similar thesis and come to the conclusion that it's not that easy. I think we will have more problems than we would like. But let's see. I think the Trump administration will be very supportive, but can they just overrule this? This is the big question. Here, I have more. XAI is building the world's largest supercomputer in Mississippi. XAI is making the largest private investment in state history, unveiling a 800,000 square feet Colossus 3 data center. 20 billion plus project will be create hundreds of direct jobs statewide. Let's see about that, how it's going. Politically incorrect says interesting analysis. So let's go up here from the beginning. Leisure, real estate, Tesla. Hi everyone, says Econda. Crypto, Jazz. Hi everyone, Heavy Driver, where Boomer, train at, I don't know. Politically incorrect. Greetings from Awatuki, Arizona. We need to stop Elon. I'm so tired of all this winning. Yes. Tesla will be flat in 2026. Well, right now it's down. Is it fair to even compare these two companies? I do not believe so. Well, Daryl, that's what we are doing here. We have to compare the EBIT streams. That is what is the decisive thing. Good morning, Joe from San Marcos, California is watching. Hello to California. Happy post 4th of July. Move to New York City. Everything is free. It's awesome. I heard so. Leisure Real Estate. We have now socialist paradise in New York City. You get everything for free except housing and food and metro. It's amazing. Jeff Jones Jr. Miami roads are chaos. If Robotaxi can make it here, it can make it everywhere. That is true. Tesla's best friend will be time. Well, yeah. Rome was not built in a day. It's definitely not in a day. Ready for the new Tesla Bluetooth speaker on July 7th. That's very funny. Bogdan. Okay, what else do we have? Hello, Joe, says C1 Fizz. Street Cred 0, New York City. In Florida, very hot in Florida. No surprise. Very hot in the Carolinas. But our government isn't as stupid as in New York City. Well, that's as long as you're not in California, that's an obvious statement. New York City takes the cake. I also think, by the way, that New York City has now the dumbest government in the United States, finally surpassing California. So that's quite an achievement. You have to give it to Mamdani, right? If you're dumber than California, that's not random. That is skill. You can't just randomly be dumber. Hyperscalers are about to go off a cliff. I'm not sure. I think there will be a shock in the market when the enterprise token spendings are more broadly going back, like are being taken down. I think that's inevitably happening. That will be a little shock, maybe a little sell-off. We can be pretty sure that's happening. But by then, new models coming out, and then it goes up again. So I don't think we are in a bubble, but I think there will be always the attempt to make a bubble. Can we have an update on the SpaceX calls? I actually did more research on the short situation, and I'm getting a little more nervous on SpaceX. I think there is short squeeze potential, which I don't like for my calls. So I will take down my position a little bit and be more cautious until August when the selling pressure actually starts. And we always have to watch out for short squeezes. I think that SpaceX is definitely going down, but you have to be cautious. If there's too much shorts, there can be a squeeze in between, and that can hurt a lot. Anthropic deal is 100% of a Colossus 1. And 95,000 B200 GPUs from Colossus 2. Colossus 1 EBIT is about 5 billion on 6 to 7 billion per year. Wait, next big future, but that should be much more. Colossus 1 EBIT should be much more, should be 10 billion. If Anthropic truly pays 1.25 billion, right, then we have 15 billion total. And so why do you have 6 to 7 billion per year? Isn't it 15 billion per year? That would be interesting to hear your opinion. Of course, it's 15 billion annualized run rate, and they didn't start this until mid of the year, so it's going to be half of that, which is like 7 billion. I agree for 2026, but the run rate should be 15 billion per year. But maybe I got something wrong. I agree with your margin, but I don't agree with your revenue for Colossus 1. 1.25 billion per month. I think that SpaceX is going to take Tesla for pocket change. That's how Elon is going to pay Tesla owners for their loyalty. SpaceX is nothing without Tesla. What do SpaceX have? Satellite TV. Well, the golden line, they have a lot, as I explained, but it is also unclear when they have it. Are there enough customers to pay all those billions for compute, just as Tesla cannot produce 12 million robotaxis? Austin 4, no, I think there are definitely customers for the compute. There's just too much value being generated. The entire Earth needs compute, you know, and paying $1 trillion for intelligence is definitely in the cards now, and then much more next year. CapEx is subtracted. Yes, Bob Jazz, I showed my screen here. I did it very simplistically, but in this table is a very simplistic table right now. Just back of the napkin, we have the CapEx here. Okay, 7 billion for Colossus 2, 38 billion for Colossus 1, 7 billion total CapEx, 38 billion for Colossus 2, but not fully invested yet. And divided by 6 years, roughly, I think it can be longer than 6 years, by the way. But 6 years are industry standard for depreciation. And here you have basically the CapEx as depreciation number annually. And that's being deducted from the revenue, from the margin, from the contribution margin. So annual revenue, we assume 80% margin, which gives you a number that I don't display here. And then I subtract from that this year. I mean, depreciation, is that actually correctly? Yeah, because they're using it themselves, yes. You have to take the full depreciation and then add the revenue negative minus the actual costs. That gives you the EBIT after you subtract the full depreciation. If you use more of it, of course, then your EBIT goes down dramatically. But they could operate Colossus 2 right now, theoretically, at 2.5 billion EBIT, while using 60% of the capacity themselves, which is a pretty good deal. Joe, how much will SpaceX price increase tomorrow, Tuesday, based on its inclusion in the NASDAQ 100? I don't think the balancing happens the same day. They have some time to do it, like end of the week. That is like a longer tail for people to include it. The lawsuits are just so the attorneys can get their share of compute, just as they collected 3 times in fees for every ounce of gold found in California. Sure, attorneys are horrible, but still a lawsuit. Greetings from Tucson, says Brian. For several months, your thesis was that Tesla was worth 490 with no news because it was there in December. After the big slide, you said you thought 410 was the correct level. I said that once CyberCap Catalyst is back, we will go to 400. No, it's not back. It's like we see the first nudges of CyberCap, we go to 490. Yes, that's what I said. I said now we are not getting there if people lose hope in CyberCap and will go around 410 and then slide down more slowly as long as nothing happens. That's what I'm saying. Next big future says February 2026, at least 27 turbines with 495 megawatt combined generating capacity. Now 60 turbines. Is that the case? That is the big question. Where do we have 60 turbines live? Let me see. Okay. How many turbines and gigawatt energy is currently active across Colossus 1 and 2 as of today, and how much is coming online guaranteed over the next 3 months? Let's ask Rock. Percy says it costs 10 billion to build a nuclear plant. Why not just build one? It's never the costs that are the problem. It's the permitting. Nuclear plant takes 10 years. That's the problem. That is the problem. So Grok says we have 12 to 15 permitted. We have 46 in Colossus 2 under permitted. We have 58 to 61 turbines, 1.2 to 1.5 gigawatts total from turbines. But is that the compute? So Next Big Future says 27 turbines combined in February 26. Now 60 turbines. Well, that's the big question. It seems we have 60 turbines. It seems we have a gigawatt of energy, but what does that mean? Is this already built in? Like, how much more capacity does it imply? Is the capacity already online? That's the question. So does that mean more compute can be built out, or is all the compute already built out with these 60 turbines? And can they keep operating them because they're under permitted? The turbines provide power generation capacity for roughly 1.2 gigawatts. This power enables GPUs, blah, blah. So we have 230,000 GPUs using 0.3 gigawatts. We have Colossus 2, 1 gigawatt ready, hundreds of thousands ramping up. It says Colossus 2 is not fully built out yet. It is still in the process of installing more racks, GPUs. The turbines were installed to support this ramp up. The overall X plan is 1 million GPUs across the Memphis area campus. The current turbine fleet gives them headroom to keep adding compute in the near term without waiting for the utility grid. How much is the question? But based on these numbers, it could be a lot. That is a good question. Thank you, Next Big Future, for these details. So the question is, if we have 0.3 gigawatt leased out at lower level lower level GPUs, and we're adding a gigawatt with 3x, that is basically 3x, 9x the revenue. That's 90 billion potential revenue there, but not leased out fully. So this is probably 40 billion in additional revenue in the short term, potentially coming in if the maths out. Right? So quick math, if they would lease out half of that, it would be roughly 40 billion in additional revenue. But to my point, will it drive up SpaceX stock like crazy? The problem is they're hitting a real build-out wall, in my opinion. So it's not just can they add 40 billion, which would be cool. So they can maybe add 40 billion in EBIT in the next year. Who knows? Maybe they can do that. But that doesn't mean they can add, 100 billion in 2027, because that build out is hitting a wall, in my opinion. Or at least it's unclear, unless they get real support. Politically incorrect with the most important question. Never mind, Tesla and SpaceX needs your assessment on the Taylor Swift and Kelsey Travis wedding. I mean, there should be future contracts on how long this thing keeps. But, you know, there should be Kalshi betting markets when they get divorced. Dr. Bombay. Hi from Wyoming. Send all the data centers here. Lots of open range. Well, Dr. Bombay, if they get fast approvals for energy, that is what Wyoming would have to do. C1 Fizz, Texas has plenty of flared off natural gas to capture. Well, good luck getting this to 1 gigawatt. That's a lot of money, a lot of energy. Next Big Future says the Colossus 1 portion is less, about 20 billion per year for gigawatt. 230,000 chips for about 6 billion and 95 KB 200. Lawsuits of short term, high odds of a district court dismissal that effectively ends the case in XAI's favor. Colossus 2 build out continues. So there's this lawsuit we need to overcome. I would say there's 40 billion in EBIT maybe sitting after this analysis. 40 billion EBIT sitting around Colossus 2. And then there's a lawsuit, so if they can overcome it. So I think 40 billion in additional revenues, EBIT, probably realistic in the next 12 months at some point. Richie says Mississippi state approval and federal backing makes major hauls unlikely in the near term for Colossus 3. For Colossus 2 build out, that's the most important thing. Seafits, will you be joining Alexandra for a pod this week while Herbert is vacationing in Korea? We have Cern Basher and me on Tuesday, I think. Next Big Future says partial dismissal, most of the rest of the odds and appeals to SCOTUS, 60 turbines, Colossus 2, yes. Joe, do you know if any index inclusions would have likely be managed well up front via options and dip buys in the 150, 160 range as to not create a squeeze on the week of the inclusions? I mean, look at how Tesla stock behaved. It's extremely difficult. This is all insider market manipulation games that, of course, I don't know about. You know, if people want to squeeze, it's easy to squeeze. If they want to avoid a squeeze, it's easy to avoid a squeeze if you're the right people. So what do they want? I don't know. But I'm getting more cautious about this. In the short term, as long as they don't build data centers in liberal states, they'll be okay. Many corrupt judges, yes, liberal states are very dangerous for anything productive. Government can help in public-private funding for mini nuke plants dropped in major metro areas. Yeah, it's not about funding. Funding is never the problem. It's all permitting. It's kind of amazing how incompetent the governments are all across the world, from Europe, even in Scandinavia, in Spain, in Poland, where they're a little more, you know, smart about these things, and in the United States. It's just mind-boggling that you can't get these permits in this extremely decisive period. Here, Richie Cash, March 2026, the Mississippi Environmental Quality Permit Board anonymously approved a construction operation air permit for 41 permanent gas turbines. Meta has a data center going up in my city, Jeffersonville, Indiana. I guess that does not help Tesla, though. Yeah, let's see how quickly that works, Stephen. You know, if that gets also interrupted. New Doosan 380 megawatt permanent turbines are coming. Install at Colossus 2, move temporary turbines to next site, and they have permits for that, probably. The problem is also Next Big Future that, you know, the opponents are definitely dialing into lawsuits and how to stop these things. I think in the beginning, the attention was much less. Metukolu, hello from the Prairie State. Hello. Welcome to Pioneer Lands. 6+ gigawatt of natural gas turbines on order. Doosan 12, 380 megawatt turbines. APR Energy, 40 99.9% of solar turbines, Caterpillar, over next 3 year. Yeah, they probably are not bad in procurement. The question is, can they hack the permitting and resistance thing? I do not think for Elon there will be a major obstacle in building out data centers. I also think if anyone, then the Elon team will be best in getting the energy stood up. So it all comes down to permits and the resistance, and I would not underestimate that. If someone could add up all the energy of the flared off natural gas that multiplied by 35%, then that would be the theoretical electrical energy which could be put towards inference from gas. Sure, but I don't know how much that is and how you capture that. It seems a little not easy. Habibi Learning says, hi Joe, hello. So there you have it. That's going on. Should we finish this off with some Doosan turbines so we know how they look like? Turbines. It's kind of cool to learn about these things. Look at this. How cool is this? Gas turbines for power generation. Doosan. This is how they look like. Pretty cool stuff. Here, look at this. Isn't that exciting? I mean, look at this stuff. Why is everyone cool now? Even these turbine people. Such a cool website. Look at this. New energy gas turbines, small modular reactors. What is that? Why do they have such a cool website? I'm blown away. Is this nuclear reactors? Wow, Doosan. Korea Smart. Is this a Korean company? Why is this so cool? I want to buy one of these. Here. Small modular reactors. Should we go down? Here you can learn so much about the energy thing. Boom, boom, boom. They have the coolest website. I'm very impressed. So, yeah, this is going on. Politically Incorrect says, I think the sell-off was overdone for Tesla after these delivery numbers. Yeah, I think so too. I bought Tesla calls that morning of the sell-off. Your thoughts on what happened? I think it was just a rug pull. People profit of this stuff. It ran up too much. I agree with that. I think 410 would be fair. 390 was insane. 394. So in theory, it should bounce, but you never know. Yes, here. For SpaceX, yeah, I think in terms of index inclusion, that is all taken care of, that there is no volatility around that. But I would not underestimate manipulation and short squeeze strategies. Because if 30% is short right now, that's a lot of shorts, and squeezes are always like unexpected attacks when the shorts don't pay attention. Squeezes are basically, you buy the stuff, you very targeted blitzkrieg, you drive it up, you squeeze all the shorts out, stock goes to 300, 400, and then you're screwed as a short, and then it drops back to 140. So that's the risk if you're short anything. Announcement July 7th. I think that's totally overrated. I don't think it will be very important. Just a gut feeling, because Lars is a geek. He's talking about, factory expansions. Like literally no one will care about that. Let's see. It's not going to be a demo of Optimus or something. It's going to be, oh, we are building another little piece of the factory, probably. Chris Giddy is here. Hello, Chris. So that's the situation. Time to wrap it up. Should we look into one more thing? Let me think. I mean, the big question of my model here is, and next big future added a lot of insight. The big question of the model is, of course, how likely, what is the exact capacity that can be added by SpaceX to Colossus 2? I wouldn't even think about Colossus 3 too much. It's about Colossus 2. Maybe we can look into Colossus 3 if they're also building out energy there. And if I'm correct that energy is the only problem, I think GPU procurement from NVIDIA is easy for Elon because he will be the preferred customer for Jensen, easiest customer, best relationship. Everything else can be procured. I think even the energy turbines or whatever is Tesla has a leg up, or SpaceX. It really comes down to the permits. Can they just do this, or is there a problem? And understanding this and timing it, I agree that there are tens of billions in EBIT, the equivalent of 1 million robotaxis for SpaceX in compute business if they could get this done. That is the big question. Chris asked, what do you think about Miami and Tampa? What's your guess for the Tuesday? Do we have Tampa now? I just see Miami. Is Tampa also live now? Can we hit 1K? What do you mean 1K? Like 1K, $1,000 per share? Not now. I mean, Mr. Doobity, maybe fatality from semi-Tesla falling asleep. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Last time it dropped like a stone was because of the stupid accident where the grandma died. I mean, it's hard to understand what people are doing. Maybe that played a role. Yeah, hey, it's Anthony. I agree. GameStop. Yes, don't get me started with GameStop. Exactly. Mark says, arrived late, want to explore your latest model. I will have a model update over the week where we have a better, tighter model on this whole thing in a video. Market makers shorting Tesla Friday to get calls expire ODM, covering shorts coming this week. I think it was just a very tempting setup. Stock ran too high based on leaks of deliveries. It was a very tempting rug pull setup, but it was also 50 million shares traded, so it's not that easy to manipulate this. Whatever the betting markets show, I'll take the under on Travis and Taylor, says C1 yes. Rumors on Tampa. Okay, let's see. Maybe tomorrow. Richie Cash, Mississippi loves Elon MAGA. Permits not a problem. Let's see. Unfortunately, these are not dictatorships, so there might be a judge here and there that has other opinions. Let's see what happens. I'm sure they're trying their best. Okay, so I remain torn. I think the bottom line is the equivalent of 1 million robotaxis in EBIT for SpaceX is there. I agree. 40 billion, 50 billion in EBIT over the next 12 months run rate is potentially in the cards. But it's not guaranteed. It could also totally not happen and be delayed. Is it likely they will add another 10 or 20 billion? Yes. But would that save the stock from falling much more? I don't know. It could help, of course. They have 38 billion or something right now. Getting it up a little bit, not bad. To 50 billion maybe. At 50 billion, SpaceX would trade at 40 price earnings, which is not bad, by the way. So maybe they can grow into their valuation. The question is, will that happen while the unlocks happen? And I'm not sure. So from a stock perspective of SpaceX, there will be major selling pressure coming to SpaceX. Of course, the fact that they're so short is actually good for them because that balances this off because they have to cover the shorts. But there's major selling pressure coming up. And on the other side of the equation, there will be these announcements that are actually not just Starship, blah, blah, blah. They're actually EBIT heavy announcements coming in. And that is very interesting. So I still believe we see a major share drop, but the rise back up could happen faster than people think. And I think it's all a question of the timing of the next big deal here, because if they can continue these big deals, and get another 10 billion in EBIT quickly, that can offset the drop, in my opinion. Let's see. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Getting late here, but More coming very soon. Tomorrow will be another exhausting trading day. Let's see what Tesla does. And I hope you enjoy your July 5th and the remaining celebrations around the 250-year anniversary of the great United States. So I hope that was interesting. See you tomorrow.